Welcome in, Jake West, Caleb Tallman. This is the Western North Carolina edition of the Friday Night Pressbox. And Caleb, we are down. Well, we were down to two teams last week, but we're going to get down to one team after this week as we are in the fourth round. Robbinsville got snuck by with a win last week at home. And Murphy went on the road and opened a lot of people's eyes, beating the number one seed. And we'll get into those games in a minute. But just quickly before we start recapping the Robbinsville game, what's the biggest thing that stuck out to you from Cutler Adams' 377 rushing yard performance to Murphy's putting up 60 points against number one seed Easton Randolph? In your mind, what from either one of those games, what's one thing that stuck out to you the most?
Okay, and I can say this very comfortably, Jake, because I am not a Murphy guy. You're a Murphy guy. I know you and Joseph Watson are good personal friends, so it's probably better for me to say this. It is all you Murphy fans that were trying to put Joseph Watson on the hot seat. You're idiots. I know we're not supposed to call our viewership idiots, but a lot of people, and you know more than anyone because you live over there, Jake, and you're in Walmart and Lowe's and all those places in Murphy, that there were points of this season that people were trying to put Joseph Watson on the hot seat. First off, golly, toughest job in probably, I don't know if there was a new head coach that had a tougher job in the entire nation this year when it comes to high school football than Joseph Watson having to follow up maybe a top 10 all-time high school football coach in David Gentry, and to do it after a spring season and not have time to put a staff together. It just took some time. I mean, it took some time. Heck, we saw David Gentry teams that won state championships, lose to Franklin early in the year and lose to other teams early in the year, and then come playoff time, they're world beaters. And that's sure shaping up to be what Murphy is, because Easton Randolph was supposed to kill them. We talked on our show last week. If this happens, if Murphy plays their A game and Eastern, no, Murphy was just a better football team, better coached, better execution. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. There was a lot of people wanting Coach Watson burned at the stake, and I mean, we talked a little bit about it last week. Nobody thought they would be in a position to go play the game at Eastern Randolph after the Andrews loss, but he rallied the troops, and here they are sitting in the fourth round, getting ready to go up against Robbinsville. But my one takeaway from last week is actually from the Robbinsville game. Robbinsville has proved, even though they're not an aired out football team, they proved last week they can come from behind and get a victory. What were they down? 35-21 heading into halftime?
Yep.
And they came back and won that ball game 50-47, solely on the back of Cutler Adams and the other running backs. Solely on the ground, they came back and won that game. And that's not something a lot of teams can do. Usually when teams get down, they start going to the pass and trying to get outside and trying to get out of bounds. But, I mean, with Robbinsville, it's just – I don't want to call them one-dimensional because it's kind of a knock on them, but they just do what they do. They run the ball up the gut, and they try to outman you each time they get on the football field. And Cutler Adams outmanned everybody on the football field on Friday night with 377 rush yards. But I think both of those, I mean, with what you said about Coach Watson, and then with Robbinsville being able to come behind and get a win, I mean, a lot of questions were answered on Friday night. Like, can Murphy make a deep playoff run, even though they're already in the third round? People were still like, oh, well, they're going to get killed by Eastern Randolph. But, I mean, even with the skeleton coaching staff that Coach Watson has and had to throw together at the last minute with the timing of David Gentry's announcement to retire, they're still here. They're still in the fourth round. And as far as Robbinsville is concerned, there was a lot of questions of, is this a team that if they fall behind early and they get down, do they have the weapons and do they have the gumption to be able to come back and win football games late? And that's exactly what they did. I mean, a lot of questions around Robbinsville was could they hold on to the football early in the year. We saw that be a big problem. I think they maybe only had one turnover on Friday night, so that's huge. That's how you win a 50-47 ball game. Also, I mean, biggest thing for me, Robbinsville's rode their offense all year, or rode their defense all year. They had to rely on that offense, and that offense showed up and showed out, putting up a 50 burger on North Rowan on Friday night.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that Robbinsville, I mean, it was just incredible, Jake. I watched that game on their Facebook Live they use, and I thought, okay, Robbinsville's going to make this goal line stand at halftime. They're down 28-21. North Rowan gets inside their 10-yard line with, less than 30 seconds left. Stop them on first down, stop them on second down, come up with a huge close stop on third down. Then on fourth down, North Rowan makes it even tougher. False starts. Now it's 4th and goal from the 9. Robbinsville looks like they just got to get a stop, and it looks like they're going to go into halftime down a score with all the momentum, right? No. North Rowan's quarterback rose out. I don't know if it was a coverage bust or there was a lot of coverage busts. Robbinsville's defense did not look great. And hits his guy in the back of the end zone. I thought when North Rowan went up 2 scores at halftime, Jake, I thought, oh boy, this one's over for Robbinsville. And it wasn't. I mean, they made believers out of me. I mean, they came out and they found a way to get it done in the second half. And I mean, sweet Jesus, Cutler Adams. I mean, you say have a day, but say it's like that. His rushing total would be good for some running backs over the course of 3 weeks.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think we've got some highlights from that game too, Caleb, if you want to play them. But I mean, there's not much you can say about Robbinsville's defense. I mean, you allow 47 points. That's probably the most points you've allowed in a very long time. And you still come away and win the ball game. I mean, that says a lot. It says a lot about this team. Says a lot about the heart of this team. Cutler Adams, 377 rush yards. There he goes, right there. And I think Dason takes it in right here at the end for their first touchdown of the game. But also, I mean, they got Cage Williams involved early in the pass game, as you can see right here. I think he ended up maybe only 40 yards receiving, but a good dual threat out of the backfield, Kill.
Yeah, he's got a great set of paws. And one of the things, I mean, we talked about how bad the Robbinsville defense was, and it was, Jake. But after just getting sliced and diced in the first half, they held them to 12 points in the second half. Actually held them to 0 in the third quarter and gave up 12 points in the fourth quarter. But, I mean, the defense turned around after, because here's the thing. It looked like it was going to be an issue of doesn't matter what the offense does, Jake, that North Rowan will just simply outscore you. That's what I thought the game was going to turn out to be, even if Robbinsville's offense got it going more. But the defense did come up with the necessary stops to allow the offense back into the game.
Yeah, very true. And just defensively, obviously, you can talk about their miscues and everything that happened, but they also had some guys step up. I mean, Zeke Silver's 11 tackles, Cutler had 11 tackles, Brock Adams had 7 tackles. The Campbell kid had 2 tackles for loss, and so did Tolbert. So they're 2 guys that we haven't mentioned much that are getting in the backfield and shaking things up. And they're 2 kids that are going to have to keep playing at the high level that they are this week when they play against Murphy. But I mean, just in the defensive backfield with their defensive backs, Cutler and Brock. I mean, and I think Isaac Wiggins is back there. They're going to need those guys to shore up a lot. I mean, they're going to have to step up a whole lot. I mean, offensively, Robbinsville's clicking, and they're clicking at the right time. But defensively, what exactly can they do, and who's going to step up, and who's going to make a play? I mean, in the passing game, offensively, Gross was 4 for 9, 58 yards, an interception. So not the greatest night from him, but he also didn't play awful. There's player of the game right there, 377 yards from from Cutler Adams on the ground. Average 9 yards a carry. When you run the ball 42 times and average 9 yards a carry, what a feat that is, Caleb.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, man amongst boys out there. And guys, he's only a sophomore. I know you were worried, Jake, that he might not be able to challenge the Robbinsville rushing record because of some of it missing a couple games this year. I'd say he's still got a pretty good shot at it if he keeps putting up numbers like that.
Yeah, I think so for sure. I think he overtook as a sophomore. He overtook Riley Anderson for total yards through 2 years. So he's going to be somebody to watch for the next 2 years. I mean, he's going to put together, if he can stay healthy, a great string of 4 years of varsity football, and that's awesome to see. But for you, just from this game, you mentioned your one takeaway as a whole from Murphy. What's your one takeaway here for Robbinsville? I mean, obviously, defense is a question mark that hasn't been a question mark all year. But what did you think just as a whole from this game?
I mean, it's tough, Jake. I think that Cutler Adams put the team on his back and went and won them a playoff game. And the defense did come up with a few stops. One of those stops is Isaac Wiggins had a really big interception. I mean, that thing was a jump ball, and he went up there and out jumped the wide receiver and snagged it. But if their defense does not tighten up, Jake, they're not going to beat Murphy. Murphy's playing great on both sides of the ball right now, and that's what it takes in playoffs. You got to play great on both sides of the ball, not just one.
Yeah.
So my takeaway is the defense is a disappointment. And I think, honestly, some of the stuff you saw North Rowan do, it wasn't anything super complicated. You know, it was just a lot of rollouts, quarterback scrambles, that kind of stuff. I think it's a lot of stuff that Murphy could emulate. And so my biggest takeaway is hats off to Robbinsville for coming back, but that defense might be a problem.
I think for me, my biggest takeaway is this game, in my eyes, was more so an anomaly than it is a kind of standpoint for where this football team's at this point in the year. I think every once in a while you'll have the stars align and your defense that's been really good all year is going to give up 47 points. So I think for me, this is a game where Robbinsville washes their hands clean of this. They don't look at it. I mean, obviously they watch the film and they figure out how to stop the pass, but that's definitely something that they're going to be hitting on all through practice this week. I mean, both teams are going to be practicing on Thanksgiving morning. That's something every team strives for each year. So I'd say they're going to be working a lot on pass coverage. And I mean, I think for me, I mean, you just don't let this get in your head if you're Robbinsville, because you're still Robbinsville. You're still the Black Knights. You still can hang your hat on your defense. I mean, really, for me, it's just an anomaly. It's not something that is typical of a Robbinsville team. And I think you just wash your hands of it and you get back on the horse and you get ready to play on Friday night. I mean, you still got your playmakers. You still got Carlos Wesley, who had 4 tackles, 2 tackles for loss last week. I just think, I mean, that defensive front is still really, really strong. Ben Wachacha, one of the best players in the conference. Carlos Wesley, one of the best players in the conference. The Tolbert kid, the Campbell kid, and Cage and Cutler. I mean, that in and of itself, those are guys where when you make an all-conference list at the end of the year, how do you leave them off your all-conference defense? I mean, you just look at that roster and you know they've got guys that can make plays. So for me, I just think you toss this game in the back of your out of your mind. You forget about it and you go play a Murphy team that you've already beat once this year without your running back that just had 377 yards on Friday night. For me, I am not worried about Robbinsville. I don't think Black Knight fans should be worried about Robbinsville. I just think you got to get back on the horse, and I don't think you panic. You don't hit the panic button. You just say, "Okay, we messed up. Let's forget about it, and let's get back to playing Black Knight football."
Yeah, and I don't disagree with that notion. I think you make a good point, and I think that Robbinsville isn't only capable of beating Murphy. I think they're capable of winning a state championship. I mean, honestly, Jake, and I know this is a Smoky Mountain Conference Western North Carolina football show, If you told me I had to pick we're in the Elite Eight, so there's 4 matchups, and if you told me which of those matchups would you have to choose that's got the best chance that the winner does to win state, I'd probably say this matchup, because I think whoever wins this game, for a fact they're going to be playing their best football of the year to win this game. And we saw when Murphy beat Robbinsville last year, it propelled them to the state championship.
Yeah, a big rivalry win like this, like you said, propels you up just to the next level of playing football. And I think that's definitely going to happen for whoever does happen to win come Friday night at 7:30 at the Big Oaks. It's gonna be a great matchup. But before we get into dissecting that matchup, let's pop up those Murphy highlights and talk about how Murphy was just dominant in all facets of the football game, and especially in the run game, which is a part of that football team that we've been really critical on. And I mean, their offensive line bullied guys from Eastern Randolph that were way bigger than them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Murphy dominated from start to finish. I'll let you walk us through them, Jay.
I mean, when you look at the stats, and I'm pulling them up right now, it really comes down to one thing I was very critical of last week was the offensive line and were they going to be able to protect Kellen and maybe get a few yards on the ground. But not only did they protect Kellen, they absolutely ran all over Eastern Randolph on the ground, and that's something we haven't seen at all from this Murphy team. I mean, Murphy had 505 yards of total offense, 101 yards passing, 404 yards on the ground. That is probably more than they've had in 3 games combined this year, because they just haven't been able to be the Murphy team that really gets things done on the ground like they usually are. Another big thing that stands out for me in the turnover margin right here: Murphy 0, Eastern Randolph 3. Anytime you win the turnover battle, you can win football games. And I mean, look at that offensive line push right there to let their running back get downfield and break free for almost a touchdown. But I mean, that was 2 of the biggest things for me: offensive line play, and then no turnovers, and also forcing turnovers. There goes Jawan Allen right there, breaking free, getting into the end zone. And then Kellen Rumfelt, 9 for 13, 101 yards, 2 touchdowns. He got it done when he had to. And I think offensive line, you've got to brag on them. You've got to talk about them. But also the defense. You give up 10 points in the first half, and your defense has been kind of terrible all year. But you only give up 10 points in the first half, and then you give up, I think, 21 in the second half. That came against when you already had the game pretty well in hand. So, I mean, an all-around, not much you can say besides it's an all-around dominant performance from the Bulldogs.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think Murphy's playing their best football of the season. And honestly, I think they played good defensively, Jake. I think late in the game, they pulled a lot of guys trying to stay healthy.
Yeah, they did. Defensively, they played really good. I mean,
they played really good. Don't let that 31 from Eastern Randolph make you too nervous, because that was not a true 31. I'd say, I mean, what'd you give up? A field goal and 2 touchdowns to Randolph, really?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, Eastern Randolph was supposed to be world beaters, Jake. So what's that make Murphy?
Yeah, I mean, Eastern Randolph came in as the number 1 seed, and I think
deservedly so.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. I'll pull it up right now. Let's see. That's definitely the most points that they've given up all year. I'm trying to see without. Yeah, the most points they had given up until that point was 20 last week against Drawn. So, I mean, yes, you're excited if you're a Murphy fan, and yes, you're ready to play Robbinsville, who looked like they struggled last week. But also, I mean, Eastern Randolph is very good. But you mentioned it last week; they gave up 20 points to Drawn. That was just something that kind of threw a red flag off in your head that maybe showed Murphy could win this ball game.
Yeah, it kind of gave you that little tidbit. But I mean, all in all, Murphy just played great. I mean, that there's no other way to put it. And their rushing game really got going, but I think they passed to open up the run early. I mean, they hit big passes when they needed to, and that softened up the D to the point where it was just easy. Running lanes made it easier for the linemen. And Kellen Rumfeld is playing great right now. Because, I mean, and you might be able to explain more of this, Jake. I know some of it's called in the huddle and stuff, but I don't know. And then any other team in the conference, Murphy's offense depends a lot on their quarterback to make shifts and calls at the line of scrimmage, correct?
Yeah, I'd say that's true.
And Kellen's making all the right calls right now, making all the right shifts right now. And he's putting them in great spots, and he looks healthy. And state championship MVP as a junior, I think he's looking to add another one of those to his name. But then again, you got Robbinsville waiting in the wings for him.
Yeah, I mean, sticking with this game, I mean, we said they had to play perfect. They played pretty much perfect. I mean, we said they had to play perfect and they might come away with a 1-touchdown victory. They played pretty much their best football they've played all year, and they absolutely killed Eastern Randolph. So, I mean, like you said, I mean, we talked about it privately before we got on the show. Either of these two teams right here, Robbinsville and Murphy, when they play their best football, they are the best team in 1A in North Carolina. It just depends on what team's going to come out there and play. I mean, you hear about Mount Airy, they've only given up so-and-so points this year. They're only giving up 3 points per game, yada, yada, yada. Obviously, both of these offenses can put up points. I mean, we saw it last week. Robbinsville put up 50, Murphy put up 60. I mean, they're definitely, and every year it seems like they are. They're two of the top teams in the state, and I would say I think this is the two top teams in the western region of North Carolina. I think whoever wins this ball game beats Mount Airy, because I mean, you said it, winning this rivalry game propels you to another level of football that you didn't know you had in you, and I think that's what's going to happen.
And we'll get into the bracket after we take the break, but don't sell Mitchell short. I'm not so sure Mitchell won't give Mount Airy everything they want.
Yeah, you're right. Let's take a quick break and we'll come back. We'll talk about the bracket, and then we'll really get into previewing this Murphy versus Robbinsville game.
At Circuit World, we offer a wide selection of major appliances, name brands like Whirlpool, LG, Frigidaire, and more. Looking for furniture? Come by and browse our showroom or check out the endless aisle, a touchscreen kiosk with thousands of options. Need electronics, gaming computers, laptops, desktops, tablets? We have it all. OLED or QLED, 4K or high def. We have the selection to get you the TV of your dreams. And don't forget, at Circuit World, your credit is always good. So ask about our convenient payment options and 120 days, same as cash. Come see us today at one of our 5 area locations.
Hey girl, back so soon?
Yeah.
Third time this morning.
Feeling too familiar with the bathroom these days? It's not just you.
Hey girl, look who made it 15 minutes.
At Erlanger Urology, we make it easy to talk about overactive bladder and treatments that work.
Hey girl, you not coming in?
No, I'm good.
Well, okay. I'll be here, because I'm stuck.
Learn more at itsnotjustyou.com. Erlanger Urology.
In 1981, Reed Nicholson began selling tires out of an old barn in Mineral Bluff. Little did he know that he had just laid the groundwork for the most trusted names in automotive services in the Blue Ridge area. In 1997, Nicholson Tire Center became what it is today, holding the same values of faith, family, and great customer service. 2 locations to serve you, and the Blue Ridge location is currently expanding to offer fast service and the largest U-Haul provider in Georgia. Nicholson Tire Center, Blue Ridge, and Mineral Bluff.
Welcome in, Jake West, Caleb Tallman, the West North Carolina edition of the Friday Night Press Box presented by Team FYN Sports. Caleb, can you pull up that bracket and let's talk about some other teams that are going to be playing this weekend, starting with Mount Airy and Mitchell, and then take us over to the eastern side.
Yeah, there we go. So you got Mount Airy and Mitchell. Last week, Mitchell beat Thomasville 38-21, which I think a lot of people thought Thomasville may have been favored in that matchup, even if it would be an at Mitchell. But Mitchell starting to show just how good they can be, Jake. And I think they're going to give Mount Airy all they want. Because here's what I think, Jake. I think a lot of times these mountain teams, and I consider Mitchell one of those hard-hitting mountain teams, right, is Mount Airy, yeah, you got this nice, beautiful spread offense or whatever that, you got all – you're going to out-athlete us. You know what? Eastern Randolph was supposed to out-athlete Murphy. How'd that work for him, right? North Rowan tried to out-athlete Robbinsville, almost did it, but didn't. At the end of the day, this isn't basketball. This isn't track. This is football where you have to hit the man across from you to really simplify things. And mountain teams, not only are they good at hitting, they love to hit. And that level of physicality is not something that a lot of these, middle of the state schools are used to. And they get hit in the mouth, and it's the hardest they've been hit all year, and they don't know how to respond.
Yeah, I think that pretty much sums it up. I mean, we saw it, and for the past 2 years we've seen it when Robbinsville plays these teams. Like they played Winston Prep last year, and I think you were on the call for that game. They won that game in double overtime, surely off the fact that, yeah, they were a great team. They were probably the better team, but the better football team, but they did not have the better athletes in that football game by any means. But they still were able to win, and we saw it last week when they played North Rowan.
Yeah,
when they played North Rowan and came back and won that. I mean, when you come back down late in the game and win 50-47, that's just and we've talked about the way they did it. They did it on the ground. They did it by punching you in the mouth. I think you're right. We could see a lot of that from Mitchell here with Turbyville. Their quarterback, I mean, I think he's got over 3,000 yards total, 1,000 yards passing, 2,000 yards rushing. And then they've got the Hoyle kid, their other senior running back, who's also got almost 1,000 yards on the ground. I mean, Mitchell's not scared to hit you, obviously, and we say that about mountain football all the time. But also Mount Airy, I mean, they don't call them the Buzzsaw for nothing. I think that'll be a really fun matchup, and definitely more so than the eastern side. These are probably going to be the two best football games in North Carolina on Friday night between Mitchell and Mount Airy and Murphy and Robbinsville. I mean, obviously we're Smoky Mountain conference guys, so we'd rather watch Robbinsville. We'd rather go to the Robbinsville Murphy game. But I mean, if I was impartial, it'd be hard for me to pick which one of these two games I wanted to go watch.
Yeah, I would agree with that notion. But we're obviously, we'll take another break before we talk about the Murphy Robbinsville matchup, which everyone's waiting us to talk about. Taking a look at the east side, though, one team that, I mean, they've kind of surprised me because I thought they lost a decent bit, and you might be able to speak to this more, Jake. But Northside Pinetown, I mean, good football team. They've only lost 4 games in the last 2 years. Obviously lost to Murphy in the state finals last year. And they bring back, they lost that really good running back Gorham, but they bought back their quarterback Boyd, and their other running back that was the kind of the number 2 in the tandem of Gorham is Godley. And so they it wouldn't stun me. I would favor, and I know we're going to make picks. So my pick for the east side of the bracket is I think Northside Pinetown will beat Pender. And then I think they're going to be a really good matchup when we go up the bracket, Jake, to the team that just, they booked their hotel rooms during preseason for the state championship game. And that's Tarboro.
Yeah, I mean, Tarborough's always obviously ready to make a deep run. But you mentioned Northside Pinetown, and Pender. I mean, Pender surprised a lot of people with a 50-12 win over North Moore last week. I think they're going to give Northside Pinetown all they want. I think actually with just the way they played last week, my pick may be Pender to pull off the upset. I mean, obviously I'm going to pick Tarboro because they are who they are, but that's going to be where you and I think kind of our picks are altered because I think we both also are going to pick Mitchell over Mount Airy. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I'm picking Mount Airy.
Oh, you're picking Mount Airy?
Yeah, I mean, I know I talked Mitchell up real good, and I like Mitchell. I'm going to root for Mitchell, but I think Mount Airy just a little too much talent. I mean, at some point the talent there's a depth issue. You know what I'm saying? At some point, yeah, Mitchell's the harder hitting team, tougher team probably, but Mount Airy's talent ceiling is that much more. I just can't, like, Mitchell lost to Andrews this year, Jake. I'm not picking them to lose. I'm not picking them to beat Mount Airy.
I'm gonna stick with the Mountaineers. I'm gonna pick them to pull off the upset. Also, I mean, like you said, they're hard hitting. Mount Airy's kind of the prettier team, but I think this matchup for me is what Murphy and East Randolph was last week, and I'm not gonna be caught on the wrong side of that one. I mean, I picked Murphy last week, but I thought it was going to be a lot closer. I'm definitely going to pick Mitchell here in this one. If you had to right now, I mean, I know there's only 8 teams left. If you had to right now, what is your state championship? Who's going to meet up in the state championship?
Now, ask me that after we get through the Robbinsville Murphy segment. I don't want to ruin our Murphy Robbinsville segment that we're ending the show with. I'll give you Tarboro. Tarboro is going to be there from the east, and then once we finish our Robbinsville Murphy segment, I'll tell you my pick there. Because
well, let's take a break, and you can bring us into that segment with who's going to be in the state championship and why. As we preview the Murphy Robbinsville game. So let's take a quick break. We'll be right back.
At Circuit World, we offer a wide selection of major appliances, name brands like Whirlpool, LG, Frigidaire, and more. Looking for furniture? Come by and browse our showroom or check out the endless aisle, a touchscreen kiosk with thousands of options. Need electronics, gaming computers, laptops, desktops, tablets? We have it all. OLED or QLED, 4K or high def. We have the selection to get you the TV of your dreams. And don't forget, at Circuit World, your credit is always good. So ask about our convenient payment options and 120 days, same as cash. Come see us today at one of our 5 area locations.
Hey girl, back so soon?
Yeah.
3rd time this morning.
Feeling too familiar with the bathroom these days? It's not just you.
Hey girl, look who made it 15 minutes.
At Erlanger Urology, we make it easy to talk about overactive bladder and treatments that work.
Hey girl, you not coming in?
No, I'm good.
Well, okay. I'll be here, because I'm stuck.
Learn more at itsnotjustyou.com. Erlanger Urology.
In 1981, Reed Nicholson began selling tires out of an old barn in Mineral Bluff. Little did he know that he had just laid the groundwork for the most trusted names in automotive services in the Blue Ridge area. In 1997, Nicholson Tire Center became what it is today, holding the same values of faith, family, and great customer service. 2 locations to serve you, and the Blue Ridge location is currently expanding to offer fast service and the largest U-Haul provider in Georgia. Nicholson Tire Center, Blue Ridge, and Mineral Bluff.
Welcome back, Jake West, Caleb Tallman. Caleb, tell us who is going to be in the state championship and why, and then we'll talk about this Murphy game because that's definitely I'm sure everybody in West North Carolina is just really wondering what we have to say about
yeah, exactly. Well, we should have done a call-in segment today.
Yeah.
Maybe next year we'll upgrade. We'll get some call-ins next year, baby, as we adapt and move forward. But I don't know, Jake. You can ask me my pick today, and it'll probably change tomorrow, and it'll probably change again on game. Like, I mean, after I eat some turkey on Thursday, I might change my mind again. I mean, I think it's that close. I really do. The one thing I keep leaning on is like last year's matchup. I think it came down to which team played better, which team had the better team, right?
Yeah.
Because, we thought Nathan Collins was probably a little bit better at quarterback than Kellen Rumfeld. Obviously, that ended up, not necessarily saying that's wrong, but it ended up being that Kellen Rumfeld played as good, but there wasn't as big of a separation at the quarterback spot as there is this year. And I think Dason Gross has really improved. In some arguments, you could say he won that first Murphy game for them by getting him in the position to kick the field goals, hitting some clutch throws late. But I think what we've finally seen Murphy do is, even though they run the ball like crazy on Eastern Randolph last week, I think if you put it in the hands of Kellen Rumfeld, which they're going to do, and allow him to win or lose you the game, I just don't see Robbinsville rushing for 400 yards on Murphy. That's not going to happen. So at some point, both quarterbacks are going to have to make big throws because I think the defenses are fairly close to each other. I think the offenses in a lot of ways are similarly to each other, but it might come down to which team has a quarterback that can make big-time throws, and I just got to roll with Kellen Rumfeld. David Gentry really got into me in BKP last year for picking Robbinsville. And Tim, I think everyone picked Robbinsville last year. I'm not going to make that same mistake 2 years in a row. I think you're going to have deja vu, and I think Murphy's going to go up to Big Oaks as a team that lost the conference championship but is going to move forward in the playoffs.
So you're picking your official pick as of today is Murphy advances on to the Western Regional Championship for the second year in a row.
Yeah, ask me again tomorrow. I mean, I here's the thing. I think even more so than last year's game, Jake, this game's going to be legendary. I mean, like, this thing is shaping up to maybe be one of the best Murphy Robbinsville games of all time. I mean, how many times have they played in the playoffs the last couple of years?
They've 7 of the past 10 years, Murphy and Robbinsville have played in the playoffs, and I think you're right. I mean, obviously for these kids that are playing, this one is bigger than any of them, and it does seem to have like a weird feel around it. I think for me, last year's game kind of meant more with Robbinsville coming in, hadn't lost a game in 2 years. Murphy coming in, they were down and out all last year. But I think these Murphy teams, just to get off on a side tangent really quick, these two Murphy teams, last year's team and this year's team, for me, they kind of mirror each other. I mean, not necessarily. I mean, starting out last year in the spring, Robbinsville was picked by far and away to win the Smoky Mountain Conference, and they did. And they were regarded as the best team in Western North Carolina, and they were one of the best teams. And then Murphy got it done when they had to. And I think this year Murphy got the preseason respect, but then they struggled out of the gate and people got down on them. And I don't think anybody thought they would be here in this position. And you talked earlier about the way Coach Watson has coached this team and kind of gotten them back on track where they need to be. And he's done a great job. So I think these two teams, kind of align in that aspect of no one expected them to be here. No one really thought they were going to end up in the 4th round of the North Carolina High School Athletic Association state playoffs, but yet here they are. But for me, being from Murphy and going to Murphy High School and being a Bulldog growing up, the biggest thing that scares me as a Murphy fan is the defensive line of Robbinsville. I mean, Cutler Adams, best player in the conference, best player in Western North Carolina for sure. But more so than him, Carlos Wesley, Wachacha, those bigger guys on the line, Tolbert playing linebacker. I mean, those guys scare me more so than what they've got with Cage Williams and Cutler Adams in the backfield. I mean, yes, size was on Eastern Randolph's side, and Murphy blew them out. But I mean, I just think this Robbinsville team up front defensively and up front offensively, they've got the size, but they've also got the heart, which is maybe something Eastern Randolph was lacking. So I think, I mean, the size up front could definitely be the difference for Robbinsville if Murphy's line does not come out and play like they're capable of playing. And I'll hand up, I did not think they were capable of playing as well as they played last week. So, I mean, I think if you take last week out of your mind and Robbinsville handles North Rowan like they should, I think Robbinsville is the favorite coming into this game. But last week being so fresh and with everybody having that on their mind, I think a lot of people are giving Murphy a shot in this one that wouldn't if Robbinsville had taken care of business like they did last week. But obviously, I think it's going to come down to 21-28, something like that. I mean, we're not going to see 50 points get put up like we did last week. I mean, it's going to be a great one, and like you said, this one could be the best Robbinsville Murphy matchup we've seen maybe ever, and they've got some of the best athletes that have played in this game maybe ever with Cutler Adams, Cage Williams, Kellen Rumfelt, Peyton McCracken, the Ty Laney, Ben Wachacha, Carlos Wesley. I mean, those are names that will ring out in mountain football folklore for years to come, and we get to see them all play on the field again. I mean, the first time these two teams played, instant classic. I mean, Cody Klein field goal, 2 Cody Klein field goals over 40 yards, one to win the ball game. But for me, I mean, I'm going to pick Murphy to win this one, just very in a very tight one. For me, this Murphy team is completely different from the team that played Robbinsville in first. And I know first game, Robbinsville didn't have 5 of their 6 starters. And that's why I'm not confident in saying that Murphy can win this ball game. I am confident in saying that whoever wins this ball game is going to go to the state championship. But just whoever comes out on it on top is 6 one way, half a dozen another. But I think Murphy, more so than Robbinsville at this point in the year, has evolved into a different football team than they were when they first played.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I've got one interesting for you, Jake. I usually do them every single week, being that we had one game. I kind of forgot there for a second, but let's toss this up there real quick, and maybe this gives us a talking point, because this was an absolute shocker to me. Massey rating spread has Murphy favored at Robbinsville by 3.5, and we know home field's worth 3 to 5 points, give or take. So they're saying Murphy's on a neutral field, they're saying Murphy's a touchdown favorite, which a lot of those spreads have been fairly close, but they've also been way off at times, Jake. So, I mean, that's just, I'm not saying, listen, this ain't the Jake and Caleb spread, guys. You can go to masseyratings.com and generate spreads for tons of different teams. I mean, they've got the spreads up for all of the North Carolina playoffs. So, that was really intriguing to me, though. But I think you're right, Jake. I think one of the things that we saw Murphy do that you very rarely see teams do in the third round of playoffs, okay? We knew what Murphy's floor was, and honestly, their floor was not that great. Robbinsville's floor was honestly still pretty decent most of the times. But then we know where Robbinsville's ceiling is at. We've seen it, right? We saw it against Asheville early in the year. And we saw it, in some respects against Murphy without Cutler the first time. We thought we knew where Murphy's ceiling was. They raised their ceiling last week beyond what we thought it could be. If it's like if we're playing Madden football, and if a team plays their best or an 85 overall, well, we thought Murphy was an 85 overall to use a video game analogy, and they're actually about like a 96 or a 97 based on the way they played last week. And so I think, like you said, though, I think we're making up for another instant classic. I really do.
Yeah, I definitely think it's going to be probably a 3-point ball game. And if it is that close coming down the stretch, I mean, Robbinsville definitely has the leg up in the kicking game for sure with Cody Klein. So if it comes down to a field goal, Robbinsville's going to win. If it comes down to who needs to score with 30 seconds left to end the game, I think Murphy's going to win just because their passing attack is more equipped. But going back to Robbinsville, and it's something I hammered on early on in the show, you got to throw last week out of your mind. You've got one of the best coaches, one of the best coaching staffs in all of Western North Carolina. You're going to get right. Lucas Ford and Coach Postel and a lot of those other guys on Coach Walsh's staff are going to take care of their position groups, and they're going to get right. Murphy's not going to throw for 350 yards or whatever North Rowan did against Robbinsville. I don't think so.
Here's the thing. I'll say this about Robbinsville's defense, though. The passing defense has been a weakness all year, and they finally played a team that could really, really expose it.
Yeah, that's true.
I think Murphy with Kellen Rumfelt and his cast of characters at wide receiver is a team that could expose it.
Yeah, I mean, I think they definitely could take advantage of that, but I think just coming into this game, Robbinsville is going to make sure that is not where they get beat. I think Murphy's going to have to win this ball game on the ground and in the trenches, and that part favors Robbinsville. That's why it's so hard for me to pick Murphy. I mean, obviously that's why I lose so much money at these casinos, because I pick with my heart, but I'm going to pick with my heart and I'm going to pick Murphy. But I think if you look at both of these teams, I think Robbinsville probably has the one up. That's why the ratings, the Massey rating spread surprises me, especially being at home, being at the Big Oaks. I mean, right? Yeah, Robbinsville won the first one, but Robbinsville's got a bad taste in their mouth knowing Murphy beat them last year and then went and won the state championship. So I think Robbinsville, both of these teams are going to get the other team's best shot, without a doubt, and that goes without saying. But I think back to what I was saying before, Robbinsville's going to be prepared and not allow Murphy to beat them in the passing game. Murphy's going to have to win in the trenches. So that means Carlos Wesley, Ben Wachacha, the big guys up front, going to have to step up. They're going to have to penetrate, and they're going to have to get pressure. And on the flip side of things, that means the offensive line of Murphy that struggled so much this year and played so well last week is going to have to play very well again in order for the Bulldogs to come away with a victory. We're closing near the end of our show, Caleb. Any closing statements? Let's go with the score. What's the score going to be? How does either team win this ball game?
One thing I want to mention too that we've not talked about, and both teams have struggled with it at different portions of the year, and so if it pops up its ugly head again, it'll turn the game. It's turnovers, as it always does. Robbinsville has struggled with turnovers. Kellen Rumfelt had some uncharacteristic interceptions this year. I mean, if either one of those pops up, this game is so close. If one team wins the turnover margin by 2, heck, I don't know if one of the teams wins the turnover margin just by 1, if it's not even, I'd almost favor that team. You know what I'm saying? But for a score prediction, I'll say Murphy 28 to Robbinsville 24. 3 touchdowns and a Cody Klein field goal.
I'd say that's pretty close. Either way, depend on which team comes out on top. I definitely think we're going to see both coaching staffs pull out all the stops. And Cutler Adams, if he's able to do again what he did last week to Murphy, I mean, it won't be close in favor of Robbinsville. But if Murphy is able to throw the ball like North Rowan did against Robbinsville, I mean Murphy's not going to let one person beat them if they're already up in the ball game. So I mean, there's so many different scenarios and ways the game can play out. One thing for me is Cage Williams. he's got to lower his head. He's got to put a hurting on some of these Murphy linebackers because Cutler Adams is I mean, he'll lower his head and hit you too, but he's going to be shifty and he's going to pick up big chunk plays. I think the cold is going to play a big factor, and if Cage Williams can lower his head and lay some big hits, as cold as it's going to be on Black Friday at the Big Oaks, that could play a big part in this ball game. And on the flip side, Murphy linebackers, you got to be perfect. You got to be perfect for this one game because that's where you're going to get beat. You can't allow Cutler to beat you. You can't allow one person to beat you. But with that being said, I mean, I'm gonna pick Murphy. I think Murphy wins this game by a touchdown, maybe 35-28. Late, Kellen Rumfelt drives them down the field and they win.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think one of the things to consider, Jake, too, is just like I said, a prediction of 28-24. For that to happen, that means Murphy's hitting 4 extra points or picking up some 2-point conversions. Because we even saw it last week against Eastern Randolph, and the score was so big it didn't matter. Murphy's still struggling with extra points, just like they did against Cherokee, just like they did against, Eastern Randolph. Like, they've struggled to hit extra points all year long. It's not been a consistent point for them. So if you're Murphy, you got to find a way to hit those extra points because you don't want to put yourself in a position where it's 27-24 and Robbinsville's got the ball and can tie it up and go into OT. Because if it goes into overtime, I would favor Robbinsville just because of the crowd. So, I mean, there's so many different factors. We could spend another hour talking about different factors that could pop up. That's just one thought I did have. That I think Murphy's got to win on offense and on defense because Robbinsville will win the special teams battle. Yeah,
very true. Very true. I mean, it's a matchup of two Titans, and it seems like we see it twice every year. I mean, 7 of the past 10 years they've played in the playoffs, and lucky for us, we get it once again. We get it on Black Friday. This Friday night at the Big Oaks in Robbinsville. I'm sure Robbinsville fans and Robbinsville players, if they're watching this, they're licking their chops, just as Murphy was last year when everybody picked Robbinsville to beat them in the Western Regional Championship game. So I mean, a lot of bulletin board material for both teams has been given throughout this week. So we'll see. I mean, it's going to be fun. We'll be there, obviously. We will not be live on fyntv.com, but we'll be there highlighting these kids and all their accomplishments. It's going to be fun to watch. I mean, great kids on both sides. Cutler Adams, one of the best kids I've ever got to talk to. And on the flip side of that, Kellen Rumfelt, one of my favorite kids we've covered since we've been doing this. And all the kids in between. I mean, Carlos Wesley, Ben Wachacha, Dason Gross, to Peyton McCracken, the Laney boys on Murphy's side, Zeke Brinke. I mean, there's just good kids. We talk about how good of athletes there are playing in this game. There's good kids playing in this game, and that's really what it boils down to is just being able to highlight these kids. And yeah, we talk about who's going to win, who's better at this, whose fault it was that lost this, but in the end, it comes down to just being able to highlight these kids, and that's what I love doing. And I appreciate all the viewers for watching and allowing us to do what we do. And we'll be back next week. Win, lose, or draw, we'll be back talking about and highlighting.
Man, it'd be real interesting if there was a draw.
Yeah, we'll be back highlighting whoever won this game. But thanks for watching all year. Hopefully we'll have 2 more shows. So we'll see.